don't know Mark Jackson personally, but as a player, I always admired the way that he played based on longevity. He was a proven point guard. As a coach, not a big fan. And now, even more as a broadcaster, I'm even less of a fan based on what he did or did not do per the MVP balloting and or his excuse or logic. Both failed miserably and both are lame. His excuse why he left Jokic off the top 5 for MVP is more lame than the ballot. Mark Jackson coached the Golden State Warriors and was not a player favorite to the point where he actually overstayed his welcome and was let go by the Golden State Warriors. It is not a coincidence that not one team out of 30 over the past decade has come calling to see if he is available to coach. The players did not like him in the locker room at Golden State with the Warriors, had some goofy, silly rules telling grown men no swearing. Well, what about no lying, Mark Jackson? You have to understand the MVP, I don't care who you voted for. It's the votes are made up by the sports writers and sports broadcasters of the world, which I've never trusted because as a professional sports bettor, I watch every game every night, whereas they generally will watch one game per night and then they'll watch ESPN Sports Center, but they get to vote. So I've never trusted their judgment. I'll give you a case in point. When Jokic won the MVP year number 2, he won 2, and then this year he took second to Embiid. I actually bet at Circus Sports. I bet Jokic at 20-1 odds, which was unheard of. It was far and above the best number in Vegas, far and above the best number in the islands. The second best number when I bet Jokic to win the MVP at 20-1, the second best number was 8-1. Value, 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 something I talk about on this channel on a regular basis. But because I did not trust the voters, and the fact that Embiid was proactively soliciting votes, I went against my intuition and skill set. And to protect my investment at 20-1 on Jokic, late in the year, I was forced to hedge that bet at +3-1, +5-2, +2-1 on Embiid, only to have Jokic win in a landslide. Now we fast forward to this year. It was a 6-month race, a 2-man race between Jokic and Embiid. A distant third was Giannis. Okay, and I'm not here to debate who the MVP should be. My personal opinion, based on numbers and based on stats, Jokic came within an eyelash of averaging a triple-double for the season. In 77 years of NBA basketball, only 2 players in the history of the world have averaged a triple-double, Oscar Robertson and Russell Westbrook. Yet Jokic had 9.8 assists. 0.2 more of an assist, he would have averaged a triple-double. He averaged more than twice as many assists than Embiid, and he also averaged 1.5 more rebounds per game than Embiid. But I'm not upset that Embiid won the MVP. I love Embiid as a player, and the fact that he led the entire league, and the fact that there is a perceived bias against a player winning 3 consecutive years. Okay, I can live with that. And also defensively, Embiid, I think, was a better player. He averaged about 1 more block per game than Jokic. But at the same time, critics of Embiid will simply say that Embiid is the only MVP of the league who has never gotten out of the second round of the playoffs. Now, in this case, a lot of that has to do with Doc Rivers, who we know is 17-33 in elimination games. And, for a whopping, 34% of the time he wins an elimination game, and 66% of the time he does not. So that's on Doc Rivers as much as anything. But again, in an elimination game, your leader, Joel Embiid, 15 points. Come on. and you did not defend your home court in game 6. So again, it's leadership. But anyway, Embiid winning the MVP, it sounds like since he won the MVP, every time I saw him interview during the course of the regular season, he was always proactively talking MVP, MVP, MVP. I never really heard him talk about championship, championship, championship. And we both know what you think about, you bring about. So congrats to Embiid winning the MVP. I'm still not sold on Embiid. This is a guy who, as a leader, a few select years ago, Kawhi Leonard made a grown man cry. What am I talking about? I'm talking about Joel Embiid. After Kawhi hit that miracle shot, the game was tied. It was going to go overtime. Toronto would have won in overtime anyway. But in the Eastern Conference playoffs in the second round, Kawhi hit the fadeaway 3 from the right corner. It hit the rim 2, 3, 4, 5 times and fell through. Embiid, elephant tears coming down his face, a grown man with elephant tears coming down his face. How would you like to go to war with this guy? This is your leader. The going gets tough. Yeah, it hurts. It sucks to lose, but you don't cry, okay? You have to man up and take it on the chin, for crying out loud. So anyway, but this point, this year, Embiid took first in the MVP voting. That's fine. I don't care if you voted for Embiid or if you voted for Jokic. My vote would have been with Jokic based on stats and stats alone, but I understand perceived bias. You don't give it to the same guy 3 consecutive years. And plus, Embiid had a phenomenal season. The guy led the league 33.1 point per game. So congrats to Embiid. The problem I have is the fact that the broadcaster, Mark Jackson, he did not have Jokic taking first or second or third or fourth or fifth. He proactively left Jokic off the ballot. Now, there were about 10 plus days between when they announced Embiid won the MVP to when ESPN leaked that there was one broadcaster reporter who left Jokic off the ballot. Charles Barkley and everyone in the media lit this person up, not knowing it was Mark Jackson. So Mark Jackson had an opportunity to come out and say, hey, I screwed up. I made a mistake. It was me. He didn't do that. Only after ESPN went and disclosed eventually that it was indeed Mark Jackson, then within 2 hours, Jackson says, hey, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. And I have to give you credit. The guy's a great actor. So sincere, so authentic. But the logic and the excuse, it does not fly. I'm going to tell you why. First of all, you knew that you screwed up. And now you know during that 10-day window, once it was leaked, that there was one person who left Jokic off the ballot entirely. You had an opportunity to come clean. You chose not to. Only did you come clean once they announced that it indeed was Mark Jackson. That's number one. So he said a couple of things. Number one, he said, I forgot. I made a mistake. I screwed up. I forgot about Jokic. How is that possible? How do you forget about Jokic? The 2-time NBA MVP for the entire season. He was the front runner up until Embiid came on like a house on fire the last couple of months of the regular season. So I'm not buying that argument. Can you imagine when Malone, who like Embiid was openly campaigning and soliciting votes in 97, 98, when Michael Jordan was the clear-cut winner for the MVP? Michael Jordan took a back seat, didn't really seem to care, but Malone wins the MVP. But everyone knew it was between Jordan and the mailman. But can you imagine if a broadcaster, a voter at the time, left Jordan off the ballot altogether and then says, I forgot about Jordan? It's impossible. It is impossible for you to forget about the 2-time reigning MVP in Jokic. So I don't want to hear that, number one. Number two, he also said, hey, you know what? I think the problem here is I was voting for the NBA, all NBA team. As Mark Jackson said, I had 1 center, 2 forwards, 2 guards. because in his top 5 for MVP on the ballot, he said Embiid, followed by he had Tatum, he had Giannis, he had he didn't have Jokic, obviously, but he had SGA from Oklahoma City, and he had Donovan Mitchell of Cleveland. No Jokic. So again, to recap his top 5, he said later that, I was thinking I was filling out the all-NBA team, and that doesn't fly either, and I'm going to tell you why. He had one center, Embiid. He had a couple of forwards, Giannis and Tatum, and then he had a couple of guards, SGA, OKC, and then Donovan Mitchell. But the problem with that is he'd already filled out the all-NBA team, first, second, third team NBA. Donovan Mitchell, who he voted for top 5, no Jokic, Donovan Mitchell, top 5. It is an absolute joke. Because on his all-NBA team, he did not have Donovan Mitchell in the top 5. Didn't have him on first team, all-NBA. Did not have Donovan Mitchell all-NBA second team. He had Donovan Mitchell on his third team. So that's why I'm telling you, he may not allow swearing in the locker room. I hate to say it, but what are his views on proactively lying and deceiving people? I'm telling you, straight up, his excuse, his logic, a bigger joke than his ballot. Let's talk pro baskets. The Denver Nuggets hosting the LA Lakers in Vegas. The series price was as low as 135. That's what I bet it at. It's up to 165 now. The money coming in on Denver, and for good reason. Yet the game 1 in Denver, Mile High City, high altitude, thin air. Denver Nuggets have the second best home record in all of basketball. Lakers, no team has been better than the Lakers since the All-Star break. Yet Denver opened to 5, been bet up to 6, -6, -115, -118 at this point. So the money's coming in on Denver. And also you've seen a move upward on the series price. So to me, the question is, I see value for the series. First team to win 4 out of 7. The fact that Denver, they're world beaters at home, and their starting 5 as good as anybody. Okay. So my money for the series, forget game 1. I'm talking for the series, -135 on Denver. See the cashier.